Now C++ is an object-oriented program. So in previous videos, we saw what were classes and what were objects. Now suppose an object of a class also resembles objects of other classes. For example, the most common or in classic example, they use animals. Suppose there's a class called animals. It's a general class describing functions that all animals use. But suppose there's another class called dog, a class called fish, a class called cat. Now, even though they're specific classes, they describe what dogs do, fishes do, and cats do, they also fall under animals, and they also use the common functions that are described in the class animals. Another example is shapes. Now there's a common class called shapes which has functions and attributes that all shapes have. But there are other classes called circle, rectangle, square, which are more specific, but they also fall under shapes. So they can also use the attributes and functions defined in the class shapes. Now let's see the animal example and how inheritance works. Inheritance basically allows the specific classes to use the functions and attributes mentioned in the more generalized class. Now the more generalized class or the class in which the functions and attributes are used by the specific classes is known as the base class. And the classes that inherit these properties or use the properties defined in those general classes is known as a derived class. Let me take the example, which is animals. Now let me define an empty class called dog. Now, in order for an object of class dog to use the speak function which is defined in the class animal, it has to inherit the class animal. So how inheritance works is in the base class, in the derived class, you put a colon next to the name and public, whatever access specifier you need to use, and the base class name. Now this denotes that the class dog inherits all the public access specifier attributes and methods from the class animal. Now let's call that function. And it says animal speaks. Now let's remove the inheritance. So if we remove this public animal, it means that the class dog is no longer inheriting the class animal. So let's save it and see what happens. See, class dog has no member named speak because it's an empty class which is not inheriting anything from the class animal. So that's about inheritance. I hope you understood the video. Thanks for watching.